Welcome everybody. Today I want to thank everybody for showing up. My name is Shaq and you are welcome to my show. So the Sharingan, everybody believes that they have it figured out. It's one of the most prolific things in all of anime. Everyone says that it equals hatred, and some people have good arguments for that, but is that actually what they say in the show? Today I'm arguing that it's actually one of the biggest misconceptions in the series. First of all, we want to argue where this myth comes from, right? I think the myth comes from the fact that the origination of where the information that we get about the Sharingan and how it evolves comes from Tobirama, and the relationship that Tobirama has with the Uchiha and the Sharingan is not necessarily an amicable relationship, right? And so we talk about the curse of hatred, and the curse of hatred talks about how the Uchiha are required to evolve their ocular prowess through traumatic experiences. I want to hold on to that though. Hold on to that trauma, right? So fans have simplified strong emotions into hatred, right? Because trauma doesn't necessarily equal negative, doesn't necessarily equal hatred. And really, a traumatic experience is really just another way to describe something that was very emotional for you. Those aren't necessarily the same thing. They're the two sides of the same coin. The love and hatred are two sides of the same coin. So what actually awakens the Sharingan is actually emotional trauma, something increasing the heart rate and causing emotional chemical experience mentally for the Uchiha, right? So that's love, loss, deep attachment, powerful emotional shock, things like that. Things that literally cause changes in your mental chemistry, your brain chemistry, right? Hatred is one possible outcome of that, but so is love. Hatred is not the only source of that. First evidence that we can talk about, I want to start with Indra. Indra is the first experience that we get as far as chronologically of the Sharingan. And they kind of set the story with hatred being the cause of evolution there. But I want to re-examine that because we only know of two relationships for Indra, and that is with his brother and with Hagoromo. And that was all he had all his entire life. He chose to live with them. He chose to train and live under that doctrine. It wasn't until he was heartbroken and betrayed, something that could only happen by somebody that you love, that his powers evolved, right? So hold on, that we have to talk about is actually Madara, who's very interesting when you think about this, because Madara is the most twisted case of love and hatred. Madara has the biggest heart, I would say, of everybody. That is an opinion, but I think that it is something that you can clearly see. First of all, 5 brothers. He lost all 5 of them. And then he became the leader of his own clan, tried to vie for prominence in the joint clan that he was building with Hashirama, and his own clan betrayed him, knowing that they were going to be exiled. And his best friend, which was Hashirama, despite being his biggest rival, ended up. So instance that Madara had of love throughout his entire life was tainted by war, which I argue is a side product, a byproduct of that he was born in. Uchiha and Hashirama was not Senju, and if they were not Indra and Asura nations, then his life would have been different, and every source of emotional impact in his life would not have been negative. What I actually want to talk about is actually Sasuke. He loved Itachi. Actually, his parents, Fugaku was great, his mom was great. Itachi, he wasn't really around much, obviously, with his training and his skill set, his job, but I mean, he was still a good brother, and so he was successful, a prominent student early on. Like, he literally was, he was having a great life. You could argue that if that's what it takes for a Mangekyo Sharingan to be born, that actually is a key indicator of how, looking through the reflective lens, you can see that it is viewed as hatred initially, but everything is done out of love, no matter how horrendous and gross the acts are, right? Throughout all of fantasy, we have a ton of people who do everything that they do out of love, but the things that they do out of love are gross. You think about Thanos, you think about Darkseid, you think about Apocalypse, you think about Dr. Doom, you think about Madara, you think about Pain, you think about literally everybody except Frieza, literally. And so essentially, but that brings us right to my last point, which is Sarada. And I think that Ikimoto and Kishimoto are making a point to kind of tie these same loose strands that I'm seeing here in the previous portions of the story into saying that the true growth path is not necessarily just tied to negative emotions, and that there is a path to grow an entirely different type of skill set evolution through the sights of love. I mean, look, we got Orihime, and we still haven't even discovered what Sarada's other ability is, which it may even be tied to the 100 healings jutsu, or literally who knows. We didn't see many black holes that she could collapse and explode on her own, so who knows where we're going with this. Look, I'll wrap it up like this. The Sharingan, in my opinion, is not necessarily powered by hatred, right? We have too many different instances where, depending on the way that you look at it, hatred is the reason that the evolution occurred and that the ocular prowess even starts to exist in the first place. I would say that it's totally powered simply by the profound emotional attachment. I think that the misconception comes when we begin to look at who is telling the story and when we as fans look at that person. So that goes back to how we view Tobirama's view of the Uchiha and learning and knowing that it's him that we get the story from in the first place. And then we get all of the history of the Uchiha, which is very dark. But we also get the part where Black Zetsu manipulated that portion. And I think that's also another key indicator of all of this, is that the very thing that inspired the clan to behave in this way was fabricated artifact by Black Zetsu, who was working as the Will of Kaguya to enact the Eye of the Moon plan. So they were all pawns to begin with, being emotionally volatile people, and they were manipulated into taking that path when in reality love was always there. And I would argue that there could have been a slew of different types of Sharingan abilities from the different types of emotions that you could experience, although I would say love and hatred would definitely fall amongst the most powerful and trauma of invoking emotions. That's all for the show today though, guys. Definitely like, subscribe, share the show, and comment if you actually agree. I understand that there's a ton of actual dialogue that says that it's all based on hatred, but I mean, like, we gotta use our noodles here sometimes, guys. That's it for me though, and I'll see y'all next time.